Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Study Various Majors in the United States series. Today, we will focus on peace and conflict studies in the US. So my name is Hani. I am the Education USA advisor in the Fulbright Commission. And my special guest today is Riley, who is an English teaching assistant in the Czech Republic this year. And she is going to walk us through this peace and conflict major. So welcome, Riley. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Hani. Thanks for the introduction. So as Hani said, I will be talking about peace and conflict studies in the US. Just a brief introduction of who I am. If you haven't seen my face before on one of the thousands of other introductions, I am an ETA in Kladno in the Czech Republic at an arts and crafts school here. I'm from Salt Lake City, Utah. I grew up there. I went to university there. I graduated this past May in 2023 with multiple degrees and a thesis based on the Vietnam American War legacies. And I plan to go to graduate school at George Washington University in the fall of 2024 in international education. So thank you, honey.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you. Let me see. It's not. Okay, there we go. So what is peace and conflict studies? So one of my absolute favorite things that I had a professor tell me in an introduction course was the shortest distance between two people is a story. So peace and conflict studies is surrounding yourself in having discussions with others, in trying to make sure that you understand one another and that you can get to the root of an issue. It's very much discussing different ways to resolve problems globally, interpersonally. And I have another quote, and it says, conflict is part of our shared human experience and commonly exists within our minds as well as in our families, institutions, and local and global communities. So within peace and conflict studies, there's multiple different scales of conflict that you're talking about. You can be talking about nuclear warfare, or you can be talking about your family and how to have a conversation at Thanksgiving dinner in the United States, because those can be very difficult. And it is an interdisciplinary social science, which means it's usually in the humanities or social science realm. For me, it was very easy for me to also double major in sociology because they were in the same college and a lot of the classes were similar. So just something to think about if you're interested in other humanities or social sciences like psychology or really anything, English, for example.
I do see that umbrella of communication, about this, and I feel that we all deal with conflicts on a daily basis or just misunderstanding. So knowing how to look at it, from the bigger picture, how to deal with it is just so important. And I do like the first explanation that it's just, the shortest distance between two people is a story. So short and sweet, and it's true. And and as we discussed prior to this recording, I myself had a course, Peace and Conflict Studies, when I studied in the US, and it was very valuable. And it's amazing that you can also study it as a major. So interesting.
Yes, and I mention it later on in the presentation too, but peace and conflict studies can be listed as many different things. This is specifically what my major was, but it can also be mediation or international relations. A lot of those classes fall under this kind of same umbrella, even though it may have a different name.
Interesting.
Okay, so here are some of the job opportunities that I just threw on. It's specifically from my university's website. Ambassadors, community development organizers, mediators. That just means that maybe in a nonprofit, you're the person that is meeting with community organizers. You're helping in protests. You're helping set up events. You can work for Congress. You can be a human rights officer, so you could work for somewhere like the United Nations or UNESCO. for example. Journalism, there's a lot of people who, again, double major with peace and conflict studies. So you could be maybe a war journalist where you're going and you're interviewing people who are in the middle of a conflict zone. Lawyers, attorneys, nonprofit directors. There's so many different options, and all of these are just a few of the things that you could do. Like I said, if you mix and match your degrees at any university, peace and conflict studies is very good at supplicating whatever you're learning in school. And so it helps, even if you wanted to be a doctor, for example, and go to med school, peace and conflict studies is great for having that patient-doctor conversation and trying to understand how people are feeling. So you could be a politician or you could be an English teacher, and peace and conflict studies is going to help you no matter what you're doing, which is very nice. So here was my resume and application for my university. And I had mentioned this in one of the other presentations, but I think that whatever the students are doing here is going to be enough to help you get into university. Talk about your classes, your experiences. Peace and conflict studies is specifically going to look for things that you've done in your community. Are you volunteering? Are you talking to the elderly in your neighborhood, and maybe you're mowing their lawn once a week? That counts as service. Also, within peace and conflict studies, if you've had leadership, they really want to see if you are trying to make an impact, if you've had those skills to communicate or do public presentations. Those kinds of things are going to improve your chances of having a good time in this major. I specifically got into peace and conflict studies because I was in yearbook in high school. Really liked going and interviewing people and talking to them and writing their stories. And I think, like I said at the beginning, storytelling is a main facet of peace and conflict studies because you're trying to understand someone. The more connection and empathy that you have, the better you are at diplomacy skills. So that's just something to think about. If you're taking higher level classes, great. If you're not, that's okay too. Just try it out. It doesn't matter. Yeah, honey, do you have anything to add with that?
It's just, guys, if you are not sure, whether what you do is enough, or if you would like to take on something extra, please let me know, or I'm happy to connect you with Riley, because she is now, in the Czech educational system. She can point out something you can really get involved in. And me too, I am happy to show you some other extracurricular activities or school activities you can also be a part of, and then we will just put it into your application together so that your application is unique for the university. So for sure, if you need any help, please let me know.
Fantastic. So I study peace and conflict studies at the University of Utah, and I want to let it be known right away that this major is going through a complete renovation at the U. So it would look very different if it's even still available, but there are other universities that offer it. It will probably look similar to what I did. And so I still wanted to show the students some of the classes that I took, just for them to get some ideas of maybe what to look for, things that they might enjoy. So in my degree, I was required to take an introduction course, and it was about 30 people, and it was over Zoom because it was during COVID. And so it was a little bit of a hectic class, but I still had so much fun because every week we would have a question posed to us that was a very serious question, like, what is something that has inspired you? Or what is something that's very sad that's happened in your life recently? And we became, even though there was a large class, we became very close with one another because we were all trying to be very vulnerable and have these conversations. And that was just the first, 10, 20 minutes of our lesson. And then afterwards, we would get more in depth about the different kinds of peace and conflict within the world. And so it was a really fun class. I definitely recommend, if anyone isn't sure what degree they want, to go take intro courses to different majors, because I think it gives you a sense of what a university can offer, and if a major is for you, because if I had hated that first class, it's probably a good way to tell me that this isn't for me. Yeah. So some of the core courses, I was required to take 3. A lot of them were within different colleges at our university. So there was um, sociology or economics or philosophy, and I could kind of pick and choose, like a choose your own adventure of what I wanted to do within the different colleges and see if maybe it overlapped with some things that I was already learning. Like I said, I was able to double major in sociology because of this, because some of the classes were the same. And it was very helpful to my sociology degree because it made me narrow what I wanted to focus on. I loved the classes like world religions or poverty and inequality, where we talked about global issues. A lot of people liked those more interpersonal things. So it just depends on what you want to do. For my theme courses, I had such a great time doing these courses. I took a class on critical race theory, which is like a hot button topic in the United States, where there's a lot of discussion and people are trying to make laws about it. I took an art history class for art and conflict, so a history of what different art pieces have meant during specific wars. I took a Polynesian cultural class, so I actually got to learn the history of Oceania and the different cultures. So, like I said, I learned a little bit of everything for these theme courses, and it was because I focused on global perspectives. And so I wanted to get an understanding of different people's ideas and how to have conversations when you don't necessarily know the history or the culture of the people that you're talking to. And then just to quickly finish, my capstone course and my integrative seminar. For my integrative seminar, I actually was able to take a Vietnam praxis lab. I had mentioned that at the beginning that I wrote a thesis. And my thesis was on the impacts of the Vietnam-American War. And I went to Vietnam for a month and I met with Fulbright University there. And we were able to talk about the impacts of the war on the Vietnamese people and go to museums and look and see how the communist government has had an influence on the narrative of the war. I came back and we did a big year-long research project. And so I interviewed veterans and people whose family members had gone to the war. And it was incredibly powerful because I learned a lot about that point of history in America, but I also made a lot of relationships. Without attending the Fulbright University for a month and meeting those classmates, I probably never would have learned about the English teaching opportunity and the scholarship for Fulbright. It allowed me to, like I said, write my thesis, which has been great for my grad school applications. So PCS offers not only just an understanding of the world, but it gives you real life applications to be able to go and apply history that you're learning and talk to other people. And then my last class that I'll talk about, sorry, I know this is a lot, but I
No,
think this is helpful to, it's helpful to understanding what the major actually is and what you can do with it in the future. So this last class, it was so fun because we were required as a class to bring in a group of people that we disagreed with, that we did not necessarily unlike them, but or dislike them, but maybe at our core felt that their ideas or their beliefs were not the same as ours. So
who did you
class,
bring?
I brought a group of people in the United States. They're called Moms for Liberty. and they're a very right-wing group who does not want diversity courses taught in schools. And so they came and told us why they were so against diversity classes. And we had to sit there and listen to them and ask questions without getting upset. And it was such a good class, and I learned so much about trying to understand other people's opinions without pushing your own ideas onto them, while also developing a relationship with people who you don't necessarily agree with.
Wow, that is cool.
It was an amazing class. I left that class frustrated many days, but I really enjoyed it, and I think it's allowed me to sit down with people and have direct conversations. And I think that's something that is very necessary in today's political climate. And even just, again, if you're in a leadership position in the future, being able to understand someone, even if you don't necessarily feel the same way.
Yeah. I like how spread out this major was, you know, that you got to go to Vietnam. And I know it was because of your thesis, but that's amazing opportunity that you traveled the world and you just saw what, you know, what's out there. And then even sit in your class and try not to get all fussy about different opinions. So that's really cool. Yeah. Training your patience and understanding.
And I will say too that the research, it was completely paid for by the university to go and to travel to Vietnam that year. It was my first time being able to travel outside of the country. So I would suggest for students who are interested in this major to look and see if they have internships or if they have research opportunities available, and go ask questions, ask if there's a cost associated with it, because if you can get it for free, go get it for free, because that's
exactly awesome. Yeah, thank you.
Of course. And then I just wanted to throw in my University of Utah experience, even if peace and conflict studies isn't necessarily available at the U. I think this is a great university, and there is a major that's similar to it, which is international relations. I had a fantastic time. I actually was the student director for peace and conflict studies. So I was able to have conversations like this often, where I talked about my major and the different opportunities that were involved. We especially focused on social justice. And so there were times I would be on campus and helping set up protests or getting media involved by coming to talk to different students. I helped my director with research. And so I actually would read over his writings and just talk with him about different things that he wanted to do in his interim as the director of the program. So there are opportunities within the field to get very good job experience. And I will say too, that I was able to teach some intro courses because it was a smaller major and there weren't as many people who were lecturing. And it was so fun for me to sit down with students and get to know them and to grade their work as a senior graduating and having these praxis labs. One other thing that kind of coincides with my majors was I went to prisons and I sat down with incarcerated students, and we learned writing together. And I mean, talking about not always agreeing with people, this was a great opportunity, and it really put into practice what I had learned in the classroom, because some of these people had very difficult lives, and being able to sit down and understand them and not get frustrated with the choices that they had made is very impactful. And I think if you're wanting to work with a marginalized group, look for opportunities at your university that maybe it's not people that you always have thought about helping or talking to, just so that you can get to know them better. That's a core part of what peace and conflict studies is. Yeah.
That's really cool. I do like the thing that you get the opportunity to teach while studying your undergrad studies, because that's not something that students usually get, can put their hands on. So this is
Yeah.
wonderful that even when applying to grad school, you can already mention some of your teaching experience. And now, you're of course teaching in the Czech Republic, but that you had that prior to coming here. That's wonderful. Yeah.
I agree. It was a really good opportunity, and because peace and conflict studies is a smaller major, I have noticed that in a lot of the programs there is this opportunity. Even if it's just facilitating dialogues in a class, there would be a lot of times where I was in a classroom and I would have to lead the discussion, and that was part of our coursework. So just something, it might be scary to you to be a public speaker or to have a conversation like that. But I think getting that practice early on in your education, where there's people who can help you and who understand what the classroom environment should look like, is so, it just is life-changing, is an extreme way to say it, but I think it helped me develop my skills to talk with other people. Yeah, so the programs that are often labeled as peace and conflict studies are peace studies, justice studies, conflict resolution, and global or international affairs. So all of these typically will have similar classes. I would make sure that you're looking specifically at the courses that are listed under each of them. But if you can't find peace and conflict studies, it's probably labeled as one of these things. They're all closely related and they intersect a lot. And again, if you're wanting to double major, there might be a justice studies and a global affairs program at your university, and I bet a lot of the classes will be similar. So you might be able to get two fairly easy degrees. Not that it's easy to get 2 degrees, but it might be an intersection. This is my absolute favorite website when talking to students. It's College Factual, and you can look at different degrees and what are the best schools for that degree. So say you think justice studies sounds a little bit more interesting than PCS, then you can go on here and look at what universities offer justice studies, where they are, how highly they're ranked, and things like that. I know that a lot of programs offer these as bachelors, but you can fast track them to were you and I could redo something that I did in the past, it would be to get the fast-tracked master's degree. A lot of the time, peace and conflict studies is a great bachelor's degree and you can do a lot with it. But if you want something more specialized and to make more money, especially if you want to stay in the United States, I would suggest looking for a combined bachelor's master's degree.
How long does
also
it usually take? Sorry, how long does
No,
it
you're good.
usually take, the combined degree?
Usually it only takes 5 years, which is also less time than if you actually went and got your bachelor's and then your master's. That can take usually 6 or 7 years. So less money, less time, and it's usually you're staying at the same university, so you don't have to do the application process, which is very, very nice. I will just mention again that Ivy Leagues are fantastic and you should apply to them, but they are the #1 schools for a reason. They're very hard to get into. They are very expensive. And so when looking through College Factual or at your different options for programs, maybe consider 1, 2 of those schools and then look at the other courses. Because for me, I loved going to a state university because I had just as many opportunities and I was closer to home. It was less expensive. And I mean, I still was able to get here. So there are opportunities no matter where you're at, and just consider that.
Yeah, I wanted to second that definitely. I believe universities are amazing, but I would just, when creating, guys, your college list, use this college factual source. That's amazing. But then also cross-check it with a list of generous schools, with schools that offer scholarships or that are just not that expensive. So again, Education USA can help you. There is a resource called Lendil. It's also a website that shows how much the university costs, how many scholarships they are giving out, and how much is that scholarship. So it is, just make that list out of your priorities and then just cross-check it so that you are able to afford that institution.
Yes. Course offerings are so amazing. I would go through and see what degree requirements are available for these classes. You can always sit in on some of the classes. You could say, oh, that dialogue class sounds really interesting. I want to see if it's something that I would enjoy. And you can email the professor or the advisors at the university and go and just watch. You don't even have to do the coursework. They're not going to make you participate. It's not a bad idea to try and participate, actually. I would have high school students sit in all the time on our conversations. And those were really fun experiences because you had these high schoolers who were trying very hard not to get angry at our very rough conversations that we were having. And a lot of the time they had better questions or were better at controlling their emotions than some of us who had been in the program for years. So I think it's a fun opportunity, even if you just want to do it once and see what it's like. Yeah. And then finally, look for housing and accommodation. My university, they allowed you to pay less if you were in specific programs or if you were an honors student, for example, they would give you cheaper housing. Meals, you wouldn't have to pay for them in some housing because there would be a kitchen. And so you didn't have to pay for food plans. So I definitely, when you're cross-checking, like Hani said, look at the housing, make sure that there's options. Maybe it's even off-campus housing that's nearby and it's cheap because it's more affordable to live in that place. I do recommend trying to at least live on campus your first year, just because it's a new experience and you're trying to kind of understand the university and what it's like. And it's easier to make friends. It's easier to go to events than if you're walking or taking public transportation every day to the school, and also trying to work and do clubs and all those other fun things.
I do enjoy how you introduce the peace and conflict studies, but I do have to say, I cannot imagine you being aggravated, or I cannot imagine you like screaming or just being frustrated. Like you are such a calm and peaceful person. I can see you as that moderator, like between the two. But when you mentioned that you left your classes sometimes frustrated, I don't see it. Nope.
Well, thanks, Connie. I think it is a skill that I have honed over the years, especially my first couple of years. I show all my emotions on my face when I'm frustrated, especially when I was younger. And so I'm glad that it comes off that I've learned something, that my tuition was worth it.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I would not describe you as a hothead or anything like that. So that's amazing.
Oh, thank you, honey. I think that's everything. So if anyone has any questions for me about the major or the university that I went to, I'm more than happy to help people look. I actually used to help students look for programs. I worked with high school students in the past. So it's something that I love and I'm passionate about. And if anyone needs help, please feel free to reach out.
Thank you so much, Riley. And guys, you just heard it. Please take advantage of Riley offering her help and experience and knowledge. So you have my email address here. So if you have any questions about the major or University of Utah or, you know, peace and conflict studies, or in general about studying in the US, let me know. You can also connect with me through social media under EducationUSA Czech, and I am happy to help with any step on the way to your US institution, higher education institution. So Riley, thank you so much, and you guys feel free to connect at any time. Bye.